Today we're going to tie a DNA spinner, and the pattern recipe that we're going to do today is the Great Red Spinner, which is an older term that a lot of early angler entomologists used to describe the March Brown spinner. So I'm using uni A-dot thread in this is a rusty brown color, and I'm going to start my thread right behind the hook eye. I'm going to let a small space in there and get my thread started. And from here, I'm going to wind back in close turns back to a point just at the beginning of the hook bend and stop there. And we're going to put a little ball of superfine dubbing on the thread. And the idea here is that we're going to create just a small dubbing ball that's going to help to create separation with the tails. So I'm going to try to create a stacked dubbing ball. I think one of the things that is important to learn with dubbing is not just spinning it on the thread, but how do you create a function with the dubbing. So when you look at that dubbing ball, you see how it terminates, that it's really like it has a bluntness to it. And that's on purpose. It's to create separation for the tail fibers. So I'm going to wind forward again. And the reason behind that is to keep a level underbody. We're eventually going to wrap a turkey biot over top of that. And that's going to help us achieve a nice flat body. So for the tails, I'm going to use paintbrush fibers. And I really like these art store brushes. They're cheap. They're a really nice material. They have a great taper to them. Get rid of that stray. And I've selected 4 fibers for my tails. And I'm going to hold them over top of the hook and to set my tails just close to the same length as that hook shank. And then I'm going to bind them in place and keep them on top of the hook. And we're going to wrap back in close turns, just short of that dubbing ball, and stop. So we can get rid of the waste at that point. And what we find is those filaments are going to naturally kind of begin to separate. And we can kind of coax them to go the rest of the way and then wrap back against the base of that dubbing ball. And that's going to help keep those tail fibers in that nicely forked position, as you can see like that. So even after many casts and some fish, those tails are going to remain separated like that for the life of the fly. So for the body of the fly, we're going to use a wild turkey biot, which is dyed my own formula. And the thing that's always important to remember with biots is not to cut them off of the quill, but to pluck them off of the quill. And when we do that, we maintain this base on here, which is going to be wonderful for holding it with your hackle pliers. And it'll also extend the length if you're working with goose biots, for example, which are much shorter. It'll give you more working length from the fiber. So turkey biots have a raised fuzzy edge and then a very smooth, thin knife edge. We want to tie that in a manner so that when we wrap it forward, we're going to create an enhanced segmentation with each turn. So the best method I found to achieve that is to tie it flat on top of the hook with that raised fuzzy edge pointing away from myself. I'm going to tie it in by the tip on the top of the hook shank. And again, we're going to wrap forward in close touching turns up to the thorax area of the hook and stop. And what you see is we have a nice level base. So as we wrap that biot forward, the natural taper in the biot fiber is going to help to create a little bit of a taper, but it's going to have a nice, even level perspective. So when I pull that biot upward, naturally that raised fuzzy edge orients itself toward the bend of the hook so that we'll get that maximum segmentation effect when we wrap the biot. And we get a really nice raised segmentation as we wrap that biot forward. And now I'm going to unwrap a little bit so I can come in behind and tie that off neatly. We can reach in and clip off the waste material and come forward to the position where we're going to tie in our wings. Now, years ago, I learned about this really cool saltwater fiber called DNA Frosty fish fiber, which sadly isn't made anymore. I was fortunate to buy enough to last several lifetimes, and it creates one of the coolest effects under the sun in the finished fly. So a little trick that I try to teach people: if you take a hank material like this and take the hank out of the bag, you can manipulate the material, you can work with it, but you're never going to get back in the bag right. So if you take your scissors and you cut a little notch in the bag, you can reach in with a dubbing needle or your scissors and pull enough fibers out of the bag to be able to tie the fly that you want to and not create a mess, a tangled mess with the remaining bundle of material. So you can do that with any material that's in a hank format and get the most out of your material. So I'm going to select for this particular fly exactly 5 fibers. And that's a scale that I came up with years ago. It changes based on the size of the fly. So if I was tying a size 20 or an 18, I would only use 3 fibers. If I was tying a 14 or 16, I would use 4. If I'm tying a 12 like I am here, I'm going to use 5 fibers. So I'm going to take those 5 fibers and double them. Now I have 10. I'm going to cut them and fold them in half again. And now I have exactly 20 fibers. So we're not going to waste much material at all. We're going to use as much of that length as we can and create a beautiful wing profile. So I'm going to hold this on the top of the hook and begin to do a couple X turns to anchor that wing into position. So I'm going to figure 8 that. And we're going to create a really nice, secure wing. So now we'll come in and dub the thorax. And again, we're going to use that same superfine dubbing that we used for the dubbing ball at the end of the abdomen. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to figure 8 around the base of the wings. If you need to rotate your vise a little bit to be able to get a good perspective of what you're doing, go ahead and do that. Get a little bit more on there. And now we're going to come up here and just create a small head. And we'll finish that off. 3 or 4 turns. And clip the tying thread. Now for the wings, we need to take this looped side and cut that And then the next thing that I do is separate those fibers to kind of fan them out. The idea is that we want to create flatness with those fibers. And I'll explain to you why as soon as we finish the fly up. So once I have those fanned, I'm going to come in and cut them to length. And yes, you could cut both wings at one time to get them perfectly even. I'll fan those fibers back out. And then we're going to take, I keep 2 dubbing needles on my bench, a clean one and a dirty one. So the clean one's for picking and seating whip finish knots, and the dirty one's for putting varnish on a fly. So we're just going to put a real thin dab of head cement at the base of each wing, and that's going to hold those fibers in position. So at the end of the day, we have this really beautiful wing that has a lot of sparkle, a lot of shine, and a flatness to it. So going back, probably one of the most influential people in my fly tying was Vince Marinaro. And in Marinaro's book, In the Ring of the Rise, he talks about this concept of when a mayfly spinner touches into the film of the stream, it indents the surface with all the linear pleats in the fly's wing. And it may sound inconsequential, but in retrospect, if you looked at it from underwater or use a shadow box to create the effect, or you notice that what happens is each of those pleats in the wing indents the surface film and changes the way that light penetrates or reflects away from the fly. It creates a refraction. So from an underwater perspective, it creates this remarkable prism effect. And if you look at a fly that's tied out of materials that are flat, like hen's hackle wings, they tend to look opaque from underwater from a trout's perspective, even though they create the same shape and color of a spinner wing. This hits the fly, hits it out of the park. So my favorite spinner, I tie these in a multitude of different colors, from coffin flies and hexagenias down to tricos, and it's the only spinner that I tie. I hope you enjoyed that.